Good morning,
Oh,
Steve. I am fully energized and completely recharged this morning.
David, I'm really, really glad that you are amped up for this because
Oh, I
today
am.
we have Mr. Tony Booth. He is the founder and CEO of a company called Stay and Charge. Tony, welcome to the show. Please tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your company. What do you guys do?
Yeah, Steve, thanks for having me on the show. So, Stay in Charge is an electric vehicle charging network. We help locations install, manage, and do EV charging in ways that try to make it as hassle-free as possible for both the drivers and the host properties that are putting these things in, because it can be a crazy thing to figure out.
It really can be. I mean, there's a lot of stuff involved. I mean, it's such an interesting time. You got people that are for it, people that are against it. David, why don't you kick us off?
You and I both drive an EV, Tony. I just happen not to be in it today. However, people, like Steve said, have all kinds of feelings about the industry. How big of a deal is it for a community to look into bringing electric vehicle infrastructure, or at least have a plan for the future for it?
It's super important for them to look at it for a couple reasons. When you're looking at a multi-unit community and things like that, there's some laws coming down the road that make it so that the unit owners, especially on that side, or people have the right to have a charger. So without a plan, you don't know where you end up. It's also an amenity that most people are going to start looking for. You're seeing it grow every year when they're shopping for a place to stay or to live, to buy, whatever. They're going to look for the ability to charge their vehicles.
Absolutely. It's going to be part of the decision-making process. Now, how far should a community be looking out into the future? I do hear some of the feedback that communities aren't really ready for it yet. Only one unit owner has an EV. But how far out should they be looking?
Right now, I tell everybody to look out at least 5 to 10 years. But to start, you don't need to go crazy. Just get started with 1 or 2 chargers. Then you can look at how it works and how it grows before you dig in and spend a ton of money with all new infrastructure.
Now, what are the specific challenges for a condo association to have that type of plan and to install electric vehicle charging stations?
So the big challenges that we see is just getting the right program and system together for your community. You know, what's going to work and how you're going to do it. Then it comes down to how do they get paid for and who do we call to get them put in and make sure we have the right solution.
I have 2 questions that come off of that, right? So how difficult is it from an engineering standpoint and also financially? I'm not going to nail you down to numbers here, but financially, what's the scope of this thing?
So from an engineering standpoint, in the very beginning for 2-4 chargers, it's not a huge task to be able to use the existing infrastructure. These are overnight chargers. It's the same thing somebody might put in their garage. It's looking down the road when you need 15 or 20, that's where it becomes a huge engineering challenge. From the financial side, it can run around $5,000 to $6,000 per charger, depending on what's needed. So it's not insignificant, but it's not a huge cost investment. So what we see a lot of communities doing is being able to charge their residents either an access fee and stuff like that to help compensate that.
Perfect. Now, on the engineering side, that was a good question, Steve. Is there like challenges with like parking garage? What if you have 50, 60 EVs in a parking garage structure? Does that affect anything?
The challenge when the more you get, right, is the amount of power that needs to be brought into a location. Typically, a parking garage is not built with a whole lot of infrastructure for power because it traditionally had some lights and some basic power requirements. So when you look at that long-term plan, you need to look at where are we going to do this? What's it going to look like in 5 to 10 years?
Now, I do hear of some service providers offering communities to do everything. We bring the charging station, we'll install it, we'll service it, we'll do everything nuts and bolts. You don't have to worry about anything. Is this a realistic model?
Well, do you mean the ones that do that for free? Well, I warn everybody, what really out there is for free. There's always something along the lines. So those companies, they make their money through the charging and through advertising and things like that. But the thing you're giving up when anybody does that is you're giving up all the control. Most of those places, when you lock down a free deal like that, you're locked in for 10 plus years. So if you look at that contract and realize I need 10 more chargers and that company says, oh, you want 10 more? we're now charging you this for that, and you're under contract that we're the only ones that can do it.
Okay, so you bring up a really, really good point, because when communities are going out to look for any kind of service provider, there's people they can consult on this. So how can a community avoid getting suckered? Everybody thought solar was a scam for a number of years. Who do they talk to? Do they call you guys?
So they can call us. We're more than glad to help and share some best practices and questions to ask. If you're a community manager or a leader and you're looking into this, call several EV companies. You can definitely call us. We'll help you out, but check with all of them. Let them all tell you what they do, because then you can evaluate everybody. Don't just get suckered into that first guy that comes along.
In a nutshell, you mentioned reach out to different EV providers to see what they do. Can you tell our viewers, what do you do? What are you the expert out in a nutshell?
Yeah, so I would say, let me answer that in two ways. The first thing I would say is, when they start looking at this, there's a few key things to ask yourself when you're putting this together. How are you going to control the access to these chargers and who's going to use them? How are you going to charge for the residents to use them? What type of program to get paid back for these being installed, whether it's by usage or monthlies and things like that? And then who's going to maintain and operate these things after they're installed? There's not a whole lot, but you have some software to work with. You have to monitor them. You have to ask who's going to do all this stuff, because you want to make sure when you're talking to everybody, you're getting those answers to your problem. So what Stay in Charge does is set out from the beginning to be kind of a white glove, one call solution for EV charging for any community, hospitality, places like that, where they have other things to do besides worry about EV charging. So we handle it from the considerations, the assessments, through design, installation, and we'll maintain them and do all the operations, including driver support, on behalf of our host properties. So they really don't have to worry about it. We have a lot of host properties that have never even logged into our software or anything, because they know we're managing it for them. They set the rates, so they have control of who can have access, and then we're sending them reports and payments every month for their solution.
Do you guys have a regional scope where you guys operate? Also, are we talking, can it be 4 units up to 4,000 units? Who's your best customer?
Our reach is the whole United States and Canada. When we set out to get started, we knew we were going to work with developers and owners that have multiple properties everywhere that want a one-call solution as well. I didn't want to be telling a property owner here in Georgia, when they say, well, I've got a property in Texas, can you take care of that? If we were to say no, then we're not really the solution provider that we needed to be for our customers. Wow, so we go anywhere, we cover the whole thing. That's really what we set out to do from day one. So we can cover anybody, anywhere. Our ideal customers are the large communities, anybody that's looking to have the right solution that allows them to control the access, charge the users, and they don't have time to worry about the headaches and problems. So you think of community managers, they got too much to do than be answering a call like, why can't I get my app to download, or why can't I get my charger to work? So that's where we really shine. If you want an EV charging solution and you don't want to have to worry about a thing, that's where we come in.
Tony, I can't thank you enough for being here, but we do like to give our guests an opportunity to recognize somebody that's been influential in their career or even in their life. Could be a charity, could be a mentor, somebody who's really affected you in getting this far. So can you do that? Can you recognize somebody? Give a shout out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's kind of funny, and I caught that when I was looking at it. It's something that's just happened recently, but I'd shout out to Grant Cardone. Listening to him and reading a couple of his books really took me from being an engineer kind of background to being out more selling and taking chances, and really kind of giving me the inspiration to go for it and work hard and make things happen.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's the first time we ever got a shout out to Grant Cardone.
I think you are correct there, Mr. David.
All right. Well, in the meantime, Tony, thank you so much for joining us. Folks, listening, watching, thank you very much for doing so. If you have any question, don't hesitate to reach out to Tony Booth, the founder and CEO of Stay in Charge. See you, everybody, next time for the next episode of Call Chat.